Welcome to Learning with Lerner, where we embark on a transformative journey of knowledge and personal growth. I'm Lindsay Lerner, your dedicated host and guide as we delve into the depths of unconventional wisdom. Together, we'll explore the stories and insights of remarkable trailblazers who have forged their own paths. Brace yourselves for thought-provoking conversations, profound insights, and eye-opening experiences. Our mission is to challenge the norm, ignite curiosity, and empower you to embrace your unique journey. This is Learning with Lerner. Welcome back to Learning with Lerner. I'm your host, Lindsay Lerner, and today we have a true trailblazer in the world of omnichannel retail and e-commerce joining us. Unsure of what that is? I was too, but don't worry. She's known as the Queen of Omnichannel, the CEO and founder of BRIJ, and the host of the popular podcast, The Omnichannel Marketer. Please give a warm welcome to Kait Stephens. With a background steeped in omnichannel strategy, Kait has been at the forefront of helping brands transcend the challenges of disconnected retail and marketplace channels. Through her platform, BRIJ, she's redefining the customer experience, connecting online and offline realms seamlessly. Today, we're diving deep into the transformative power of QR codes and how they can supercharge customer engagement, build loyalty, and even reshape the future of retail. So if you're curious about the intersection of technology and retail strategy, get ready. Let's get started and learn from the brilliant mind of Kait Stephens. Welcome, Kait. Thank you so much for making the time to be here today. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Excited to be here, Lindsay.
I am wondering, where in the universe did you get your start? Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in South Jersey, outside of Philadelphia, in a small town called Medford, New Jersey. It was definitely suburbia, not quite white picket fence, but like small town, kind of had that typical suburban upbringing. Played a lot of sports. I, played soccer and basketball. I grew up going to soccer tournaments on the weekends, and that, really colored, I feel like, a lot of my childhood. Early on in school, though, I think this potentially was an early indicator of just my personality. I was self-assigning homework to myself that I, didn't have, because grade school was definitely too easy for me. Again, this sounds so weird, and my husband gives me crap for this all the time because he thinks I'm a psycho, which what kid is giving themselves more homework? I was like, I need to learn more, this is too easy. And I was literally, the other kids in class are like, because I'd come in with extra homework done, and the teacher would be like, yeah. So that was kind of indicative of my childhood.
It sounds it. I mean, what kind of extra homework? Was this like fun assignments, or you're just like making extra copies of spelling and math sheets? And
I would literally go ahead in the textbook, and, when they had those questions, I'd read chapters ahead and start answering them.
Incredible.
When they were, had nothing to do with our homework.
I love this. And is this really, at any point, does it come to a head in terms of you're getting really competitive, or are you stressing yourself out? And are your parents putting this pressure on you?
Oh, it was really, really self-inflicted. It was definitely not a, parent-inflicted. It's always been that way. It's always been, I'm the hardest on myself. And I think that that's very indicative of founder personality, because people talk about, investor demand, customer demands, there's nothing, worse than a, founder's own demands on their own self. So that was very self-inflicted, hyper competitive. So I think that exhibited itself in sports, but more so in the classroom, was where I really, found my spot. And kind of, actually, there's this competition called Battle of the Books. And yes. And so at the end of the school year, they would give us a reading list of 15 books. And, I'd go to the library, get all 15 of them, or, maybe 5 at a time, read every single, you were required to read three books all summer. I read all 15, but then not just read them once, read them twice. And then one summer, even read them 3 times. The reason that I did so was Battle of the Books. So this was this competition where you're on a team of 5 or 6 students, and, one person is the captain. I was always the captain because I read the books 2 to 3 times. And then you would compete, first at the classroom level. And then there was we went out of school I guess, the championship, so to speak, which we did actually win one year. But just to kind of highlight my competitiveness, like the year we did not win, I cried. So that was, I was extremely competitive, specifically with Battle of the Books.
And at what point were you always, obviously, you're a wildly successful founder now, but were you always entrepreneurial? Were you, lemonade standing it in the neighborhood and doing that or hustling candy?
I had the lemonade stand. My earliest hustle was painted seashells. So South Jersey is very close to the Jersey Shore. So, I spent a lot of my summer weekends in Ocean City, New Jersey, which is actually where I am right now. And I would collect seashells on the beach, paint them, and then sell them on the side of the street. So that was my earliest kind of entrepreneurial endeavor. I actually, in kindergarten, we went on this trip to a farm and kids are like, oh, what do the cows do? And my dad actually wrote this in a journal. I don't actually have a memory of this myself, but apparently I asked them how much it would cost to purchase the farm. So I was, at a very young age thinking about investment opportunities.
And as you got older, middle school Kate, high school Kate, into college, were you still leaning more entrepreneurial, or were there pressures to really follow some, stereotypical path that you quote unquote had to do?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So, high school just felt so busy that I felt like it was like I was doing school and I was a three-sport athlete. So I played soccer, I played basketball and lacrosse. And so I, didn't have a ton of time outside of that to do a ton on kind of the entrepreneurial side. I think that it did start to come out in college though. So I went to Georgetown for college and I joined the Georgetown Alumni and Student Credit Union. It's actually the largest student run bank in the country and in the world. And I worked there for all 4 years while I was at Georgetown. You start out as a teller and then move up into, various different aspects of the bank. The bank actually, banks 50% of all of Georgetown students as well as, Georgetown's alumni. And it's entirely student run. So everyone from, the tellers to the, executive team are students, which are managing real customer deposits, real loans. I think it had $14 million in assets at the time that I was there. So that was extremely entrepreneurial because we were, running a bank and, I ran the member service team. And so was, developing different policies and running a team. It was 100% my highlight of working in Georgetown. By the way, we were totally unpaid. It was unpaid. I worked there 15 hours plus a week, and I did it because I loved it, which I actually think is really indicative of a little bit of a founder's journey too, because of course, founders want the upside and there is the long game there, but we're not making any money while we're running the business, and we do it because we love it, or at least that's why I do it. I am not a founder to get rich. Actually, I left a job that paid me far better. So I think that kind of love of what you're doing and that came out really early at Georgetown.
Wow. Georgetown really lucked out getting all that free labor, huh?
They sure did. Or I would say really are the student population because Georgetown itself did not benefit. However, Georgetown definitely benefits from the culture that it creates of the bank was just one of many student run organizations that Georgetown doesn't have Greek life, but these student run organizations end up being communities that, really kind of defined my experience there.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And at what point when you're, about to graduate, what did that look like? What did that feel like for you? You had to leave the bank.
I had to leave the bank. So I would say my graduation time was a bittersweet experience. So yeah, I was leaving the bank. I had a job that I was going back to at Blackstone, which I would definitely say was defined, safe path. I was going into a, investment banking role at a, really good finance organization. And I was with my family, on graduation. And unfortunately, my dad actually passed away 2 days after graduation. So that was really just like a hard, one of the hardest days of my life. But what was amazing was that my dad was at graduation. So he actually, he passed away from ALS, which is Lou Gehrig's disease. It's, a degrades your muscles. And so he was in this like extremely intense wheelchair at Georgetown has this gala. It's a black tie gala, as part of graduation, and had a tux on. My whole family was there, like in our black tie attire, and it was just like a really special memory to have. That he definitely like was holding on for that, which is just like pretty amazing. So very, very much bittersweet part of my life, but also like feel very thankful that he was able to share and we were able to share in that, final memory together.
Totally, totally. Do you have a favorite saying of his?
I do. He would say, it's the journey, not the destination. And I think about that a lot in my founder journey, in my journey of life. It's not one milestone that makes you happy, whether that's a personal milestone or a business milestone. It's really the journey that you're on, and kind of surrounding yourself with people that make you happy, doing things that make you happy. So I think that one is definitely really, really stuck with me.
And from Blackstone, what was the path looking like from there?
Yeah. So I didn't stay at Blackstone for very long. I stayed there for about a year and then quickly moved into an investing role. So I was in an investment banking role and was definitely in this kind of like quest for figuring out what was a better fit. Investment banking was not the right fit. And I was like, okay, well, natural path is kind of going into the investing side. So moved into an investing role. I was first at a company called iStar for 2 years and then at PIMCO for 3. Each of those roles, ended up being a quest for learning. That was what was interesting and exciting to me about those roles. However, it didn't ever really feel like it fully stuck. And actually heading back to Blackstone, what I always ended up finding myself doing was doing things outside of work or, even within work that were not my day job. So while, kind of like the side
Sounds like
hustle
elementary
thing,
school, Kate.
it does. And so what that ended up looking like at Blackstone, so I started a nonprofit, and this was my, I guess, first official time starting a business that was, really just a nonprofit. So I started it with several classmates of mine from Georgetown, specifically one, her name is Alex. We co-founded Park Society together, and it was focused on, helping underserved youth, explore out of school activities. And the idea was that, youth that are more engaged out of school be more engaged in school. And so we ran that for over 6 years, had, hundreds of mentors and students that we worked with, everything from, we actually took a lot of what we learned from the credit union and translated that into a financial literacy program that we implemented with, so we had financial literacy curriculum, we had a mentorship program, and then we had a scholarship program called the Passion Project Scholarship that focused on, giving scholarships to youth to explore, things that they could be passionate about. So that was my kind of side hustle that started while I was in finance. And then, that continued through, the rest of my career. What I also found myself doing, and I've actually, written about this because I was reflecting on, when I was at PIMCO in an investing role, again, like ended up finding myself doing things outside of my day job. Like, when you're an investor, you're looking at deals, you're creating a thesis on them, evaluating them, et cetera. But I ended up kind of just looking at other things as well. So got really involved in kind of the women, like the fledgling women's organization that PIMCO was developing. Spent a lot of time thinking about like what could be next at PIMCO, and ended up winning an innovation award around this thesis that PIMCO should be investing in ESG, and what that looked like, which was awesome because I ended up getting time and resources to spend on this. But reflecting on my experience there, I could do the job well, and I was good at it as it related to just like having the skill set and doing everything you needed to do, but my heart just wasn't in it. I also, I think as an investor, especially as a private equity investor, which is which is different than a venture investor, which venture investors, need to see kind of like these $billion outcomes. Private equity investors are looking, to underwrite everything that could go wrong. And I just inherently have this glass half full mentality. When I was directed to underwrite these bad things, like I just had this like inclination that these bad things wouldn't happen. And that's like the incorrect way to be looking at investments, because bad things do happen. And now I've lived through the global financial crisis and the pandemic, and like these things like cyclically happen. And even though at the time it's like nothing we've ever seen before, like bad things do happen to the market, to the economy. And those are things that you need to write into or underwrite into your investments. And it was something that I did begrudgingly, but it didn't feel natural to me. I just had this like inherent glass half full mentality, which I think actually much better like translates into being a founder than it does into being an investor.
Was there anybody that you were able to talk to about this, or was it all internal because of, you're at a company and an organization who that's the job, that's the role?
Yeah. So I had this amazing mentor at PIMCO. Her name is Libby Cantrell. She actually runs the New York office and is now a partner at PIMCO. She's amazing. She's definitely that, female boss that she wasn't my direct boss, but she definitely was a mentor to me that you just like think is the coolest person in the world, and, really aspire to, have some sort of career outcome like her. So I think I definitely expressed some of those concerns to her. I also, had personal friends that I would talk to about just the itch that I had outside of my day job, and they were super helpful, in batting ideas around. Of course, my husband was a super helpful person that I would, speak to about these things. But, ultimately it came down to me just needing to, figure out whether I was going to continue to stay on this path or get off. And I actually had like a very defining moment where I went to dinner with my husband. I think it was an anniversary of some sort or something. And that day I had closed $100 million deal by myself, which like by any means was something that I should be really excited and really proud of myself for. And I was like, Kev, I just don't care. This is not exciting to me. I was like, I don't want to be doing this anymore. And that was like the very clear moment to me that like I needed to move on, because for me until then it was the, the learning, the intellectual stimulation of the next path. And it was very clear to me that I did not want my boss's job. And if that's the case, then, continuing to invest time and energy, and it's not like a chill 9-to-5 job
No.
by any means. So it just like didn't feel like a good investment of my time and energy anymore. And I knew that I had this itch to be a founder, but that it was just fear that frankly was stopping me from doing so.
Well, it's so interesting. We've had a lot of founders on the show. I have a lot of founders who are friends, and most of them at some point, they have this moment that you're talking about where they're like, ugh, burn it down. I need to do something else. And I think what I'm curious about is, were you intentionally going into the world of finance knowing that you were going to have some sort of lucrative career and be able to create some sort of cushion for yourself? And then in the background, it was like, eventually I'm going to be a founder. Or was it more so like, this is the degree, this is what I'm going to do? And then you got fed up and
Yeah,
kept it
it's
moving.
it's funny that you say that because I was just at this founders summit this week and speaking to three founders that all started their career in finance, having this exact conversation. And so, to answer your question, it was definitely the latter. I did not have, that much foresight into, as I was graduating college, going into a finance role to create a cushion for myself to be a founder. It was more that like went to a school where the competitive jobs out of school and the jobs that were most coveted were those in finance. I was a finance major. It made a lot of sense, and kind of just went down that path. And what I saw in my career is kind of a lot of figuring out what I didn't want to do, as opposed to until I became a founder, like having this moment where I was like, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to do. So I can't pretend that I had that much foresight. Now, in hindsight, what the three of us were talking about is having a finance background is an incredible place to start as a founder, because it does a couple of things. One, it does give you that financial security. You have some savings because you've been paid well for a few years to have that financial security to take the risk of being a founder. It also gives you a tool set of analytical abilities, understanding how to build a financial model, and just you're in this very high pressure, intense job. So you also learn how to operate in that environment, which is very different, but very much the same of a high stress environment of a startup. And I think the third thing is when you do go out to raise investor capital, investors understand kind of the caliber of talent that gets into these type of roles. So there is some element of vetting there that, helps you in, ultimately raising capital. However, not to say that like, working for a startup is probably far more relevant experience out of school. And I wouldn't necessarily like give someone the advice like go into finance if you want to be a founder. That's a kind of a circuitous route. However, literally sitting around the table and all three of us had started our careers in finance. We were reflecting on that similarity, and kind of the, advantages that it provided. But that, how we freaking love being founders and we would never go back. You couldn't pay us to go back.
And at what point, after all of these different finance degrees, nonprofit experience, all of the side hustles from lemonade stands to everything else that you've done, where does omnichannel marketing start to come into the mix?
Yeah. So when I was at PIMCO, I covered retail for the team. So was looking at omnichannel, the future of retail. PIMCO actually had a pretty large exposure to malls. And so there was a lot of time and energy thinking about, there's like this broader thesis on, and this is true, the US is over retailed. A lot of malls are going away. What is the speed at which those malls will go away? And so one of the things that I spent a lot of time thinking about is like, what does retail of the future look like? What is good retail versus what is bad retail? And this really led me down this, omni-channel retail rabbit hole. So I spent a lot of time, thinking about and looking at like, what is the future of retail, getting really excited about it, but then also still seeing so many gaps. And also thought about it, when you do something as an investor that touches your life personally, you can't help actually thinking about it in your day to day. So then as a consumer, I would think about different retail experiences I would have. For example, going into a store, them not having something that I, would like to purchase. And then, instead of going to their online fulfillment center while I'm in the store saying like, hey, just, go online and see if we have it there. So that to me felt like a really bad, a disjointed retail experience. So, had a lot of those and just kept thinking like this could be so much better. I knew that I was excited about starting something in this space. It was actually when I was on the investing side that I started talking to some brands and discovered that when a brand sells through retail, so through a wholesale arrangement, they literally get zero data. So they have no relationship with that end customer. And this was this like eye-opening discovery for me that I like did not make sense. Decades old problem. So this ended up being this broader problem set that I thought was really exciting. That felt like an unsolved pain point. Did not like have the direct idea that I felt like I was ready to leave my job for. And so ended up going to
A
business
little bit of both.
school. Yeah, Sam. Ended up going to business school which I thought was a safer way for me to start to explore this idea, explore entrepreneurship, in a setting that I just had a lot of resources available to me to support the entrepreneurial journey that I was excited about going on.
Very cool. And at what point did you have that click moment for what is now, obviously, BRIJ?
So I definitely had the problem moment on a call with someone, a friend who worked at Stuart Weitzman that, talked about this zero data problem. And I was like, oh my goodness. I had another kind of click moment with actually like another business that I ended up starting at BRIJ around losing like lost items. So that was a business that I started at HBS called Found, and it used QR codes to return a lost item. The idea there was that it was going to be a broader data play for brands. So kind of cutting at the initial problem did actually, worked. We had, built an MVP, sold it to our classmates. They were using it, had items returned. But, there's a lot of flaws in the business model. One being kind of the consumer first model, there was several flaws. So learned a lot from that experience. Still was really excited about the pain point that we're solving. And then when we graduated in 2020, the pandemic really just changed the way that consumers were shopping, and that brands were thinking about reaching their consumers. So what happened in the pandemic was really this e-commerce explosion. What that created was brands who never had a direct presence were setting up an e-commerce shop, and so they now cared about having a direct consumer presence and kind of building out that channel. Meanwhile, your digitally native brands who kind of, valued that direct presence, because everyone was moving to e-commerce and the iOS 14 update was happening, CAC, or the cost to acquire customers, was skyrocketing. So it's up, 56% since before the pandemic, basically creating this dynamic where direct to consumer is not a scalable business model. And so your D2C brands were moving into channels like Amazon and retail faster than ever. So really the emergence on both sides were convergence of the retail brands going direct and the D2C brands going into retail. And so the emergence of these omni-channel brands. So was seeing this dynamic, and still excited about kind of that pain point. And that pain point now became that much more acute for every single brand. And we have this other element as well with cookies sunsetting. So the problem that we were solving just became even more acute. And so that's really when we were doing customer discovery and started just really doubling down on being this bridge between a brand and their customer and this lost data. So yeah, it's spent the pandemic, which I would say was a really dark, unknown time, as it was for everyone, but also figuring out what our business would be, or would we even have a business, doing a lot of customer discovery to zero in on what it was we were going to be building. And we kept coming back to this data problem and being that bridge. And that was really the emergence of what BRIJ is now.
For sure. And can you explain a little bit for listeners who don't know how QR codes can really effectively bridge that gap between the online and offline customer experiences in retail?
Sure. So, a QR code is where we started, and we have a couple of other tools that we're building out as well to be that bridge. But a QR code could be on the product, it could be on the packaging, it could be on inserts or out of home or in store. And what this does is provide a physical touch point to your digital channels. And so the other thing that COVID did was really create this mass consumer awareness and adoption of scanning QR codes. I think prior to that there was little to no adoption and just like very quick
Even
background.
my parents can do it now.
Yeah, like literally even grandparents. Quick kind of background on QR codes, like not a new technology. And it was actually in 2017 when Apple and Android, you actually used to need an app to scan a QR code. And then in 2017, Apple and Android incorporated QR code scanning into the camera, which made it easier. You did not need it. Like downloading an app is an unbelievable friction for a consumer. So it made it way easier, but there still wasn't the like mass consumer awareness. And then COVID and restaurant menus was that. So, now everyone knows how to scan a QR code. It just basically everyone knows how. And so we've really, taken that tailwind, to our advantage. And, it's been a central part of our business offering because now a brand could have a QR code on their product or, all the different mechanisms and, have these digital touch points. And so what we enable at BRIJ is for those digital touch points to be very thoughtful. What we've seen most brands do to date is, maybe that QR code goes to their website, or maybe that QR code goes to like a janky landing page. But there hasn't been a lot of thought or strategy, put into like what's behind that QR code. And so we, really help a brand do that. We can do it at a product, a SKU, or a campaign level. And you can build these beautiful landing pages with content that is, perfectly curated for that instance. So what you want to show a customer in store versus which might be education to help them, watch videos on, like the material or how to use the product is, very different than post purchase when the customer's already purchased the product. What content is most relevant then? And the other piece that will help a brand with is data capture. So, talked about that massive data gap when you sell through retail. So, a customer scanning a QR code is first party data. You can pixel that scan. So, the ability to retarget that customer. And then we're also facilitating, the opt in of an email from a customer. And what this looks like depends on the category of the brand. For a hard good brand, so like something that like take canopy humidifiers for example, that could be registering your warranty. And so we power that canopy. You could also watch videos to understand how to change the filters. On the CPG side, so we work with a ton of food and beverage brands. Take Health Aid for example. We're sharing content about your, about gut health, but then you can, sign up for content, or we'll also do, enter to win campaigns where, that's kind of that email transfer. So those are just some of the ways that we can facilitate that data capture and content sharing through QR codes.
Totally. And what does the landscape look like now in terms of obviously you have the direct to consumer brands, but then you have a lot of folks who have wild amounts of success selling their products on, the behemoth that is Amazon. And how can BRIJ assist in facilitating both of those relationships?
So my general belief and our belief is that a consumer shops omnichannel. And so that means online, in store, on Amazon, through social media. And, a brand is going to win if they can serve their customers wherever they want to shop. In order to do that, and in order to, continue to support having a returning customer, like a brand having access to their customers' information will help them be able to encourage their customer wherever they shop. So, being more specific, if a brand has the email of their customer. So for example, if you purchase a product through Amazon, say a Canopy product, they don't sell on Amazon, but say you did, Canopy has no idea like who you are or that you purchased that product from Canopy. From Amazon. They just know that a certain number of units went. What we can enable is post-purchase, a customer could register their warranty and opt into a direct relationship with Canopy. So now Canopy knows, what you purchased and from where, and can, continue that relationship, i.e. email you about replacing your filters, future product launches, etc. And, even if you're going to make that next purchase on Amazon, Canopy being able to have that relationship is, enables that, future purchase in a way that I might know about and not know ever about their future product launches, etc. if they otherwise didn't have that direct relationship.
And for you, what gets you most pants on fire excited for the future of not only BRIJ, obviously BRIJ, but omnichannel marketing in general?
Yeah. So I truly believe that we are empowering brands to give consumers a better experience across all channels. And, right now we're giving brands basically a fraction of the data that they would want to have. We call it kind of like the promised land state is that you could have, like you as a brand could have the same level of data for all of your customers across all of your channels. And that would be unbelievably powerful. And I think it's important in, kind of my vision and our vision and the way that we think about this. It's not the brand wins and the retailer loses. I really believe it goes hand in hand. Like consumers are always going to shop where it's convenient to them. If a brand has more data and can, share and help promote their brand, say that they're selling in Target, that is going to be a win-win for the brand and for Target because the brand can say, hey, we're, launching a new product at Target and share that with their audience. So I think really promoting this harmonious relationship to a brand having data and that being helpful, a win-win-win to the customer, to the brand, and to the retailer.
Yeah. Do you have any like personal anecdotes or stories that of customers, of relationships that you've built who have had really successful opportunities using BRIJ so far, and like just one of those things, why you even get up in the morning to keep building this and keep doing this? Obviously you're passionate about it and it's working, so that's exciting. But what are those, do you have any of those stories of instances that really make you want to get out of bed in the morning and keep doing this?
Yeah. So just like thinking about our recent sales process, we're working with a brand called Newton Baby, which they sell, baby mattresses. And in that sales process, they referenced a cold email that we'd reached out to them about and said, hey, we were just talking in our Slack. We saw this, like Lalo, which is another baby brand, is using this cool new solution called BRIJ, and we wanted to, check it out. And as I was describing what it is we're building, the stakeholders like, we were literally just talking about wanting to build this ourselves. So that is exactly what you want to hear when it's like a brand is actively thinking about the solution. So, they have built, I think, I don't know, like 30 different product specific experiences. They have it on their website, it helps in their customer service. They use it for product registration and warranty and sharing content. So they're like using every use case that we built BRIJ to do. And like hearing that validation of we needed this so badly, we were going to build it ourselves. But so I thought that was really fun. And they, very quickly, have become one of the, top engaged brands. We have this consumer engagement tracker. So that's a really fun one. And then another one I'll share is that we recently launched Feastables, which is Mr. Beast's brand. And that's one of our largest brands to date. And Mr. Beast does an unbelievable job of just driving engagement with his customers. And that is actually, so, in the sales process, like they were like, oh, we are so excited about this. We use QR codes, but have like the most janky ways that we do it. And we have to, build so much in house. So excited to use BRIJ. And then another one where it's like the second we went live with them, like off the charts from an engagement perspective, off the charts. And we're like,
Love it.
okay, it's like it's still working. We're managing this, but like 10xing like some of the engagement of other brands. So that's like been really fun, to watch over the past couple of weeks.
That is very, very cool. What part of it, obviously like I'm asking you this question because I'm not a competitive person. It's just something that like, it's not there. My wife is like the most competitive person that I know, although you could probably rival her. But is the competition part of what really keeps you motivated, or is it the engagement levels? Is it the excitement of helping brands, or is it that like the numbers and the ticking and the growth?
So I think that there's like an inherent competitiveness, but I don't feel like I'm competing with anyone else other than, I know what the metrics are like to be a venture backed brand. And, it's that like, those are like very real growth milestones. And so I think it's like that definitely is like drives us. But there's like a little bit of everything that I think is like super motivating. There is nothing more like motivating and euphoric than putting a product out to your customers and them, loving your product. Like that is like single-handedly the coolest part of being a founder. But then I also am really motivated by like my team and building a team. And I think that that's been like an unbelievably gratifying part of running a business as well, is, nurturing the careers of our team and seeing them excited about what we're building. And I think one of the things that actually happened in our most recent investment round is that a couple of our key employees actually asked if they could invest in the round. And there was, they're obviously already motivated by options and equity in the company, but the fact that they kind of wanted to double down with their own personal investment was like it was like really warmed my heart, that our team believes in what we're building as much as we do. So I think that was pretty awesome.
I love that. I love that so much. And before I let you go, I do need to know, what is the worst piece of advice that you've gotten on this adventure so far? And of course, what is the best piece of advice that you've gotten?
Yes. So I'll start with worst advice. I at the job that I was at after Blackstone, I was at iStar, and did a lot of presenting to investment committee, which I think was really, my first public in, presenting, and, definitely would get nervous about that presenting. And I guess apparently my chest would get red when I presented. And so received the advice that I should be wearing like a shawl over my chest when I presented, which I thought was just like weird because I was dressed like very professionally. Like I just thought it was an odd comment on my appearance that like didn't really address the root cause of like I was nervous, and someone pointing out that my chest gets red, or like a senior person pointing out that my chest gets red, isn't helping me be less nervous. I think that's just like okay, cover up the effects as opposed to, coach me to be less nervous or reassure me. So I just thought that was bad advice. And I also, I didn't love like the comment on just like my physical appearance in general. I thought that was odd. So that was some bad advice that I received that I just, look back on and makes me feel not great. Best advice was actually Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In. And obviously she wrote this like not directly for me. It wasn't, directly articulated advice to me, but her book came out when I was at Blackstone. And I absolutely was not leaning in. It spoke to me in so many ways. I was, sitting on calls and had ideas and waited too long to share my ideas. And, when, like a guy or someone else would, share their ideas more quickly. And, she even tactfully talks about like, take a seat at the table. I would always, defer and, sit on the window or, not take a seat. And so I think that like, it just really hit me at a time where I needed that advice so much. One of the other things that she talks about, which wasn't relevant at that time, but has become so relevant. And I just honestly, the book to me just like really, really hit, is around, how women, lean out of the workforce around like around the times where they're going to have or thinking about having families. And it's something that I like think about and, have written about a lot now, is that there is never like the perfect time. And, I think that idea of like just continuing to lean in to like things that you're doing and not like lean out because you're scared. And I think that this is something that I, see my peer set doing a lot. It's like, oh, well, I want a family, so I can't start a company. Or I think you could have both. And like, that's,
Kate's like, I've done it.
yeah. And I think that there's this like, it's hard, but like, it's also doable. And there's this like very weird social construct around like creating this massive fear that you can't do these things and that it's going to be too hard. And so you just have this fear before you even do the things. And so that is, the best advice that has really stuck with me and, continues to, benefit my career today.
I love that. Ugh, thank you so much for sharing your stories and your insights and all the things. And if you are listening and not already following Kait on LinkedIn, I will link that in the show notes. I learn so much from all of your LinkedIn posts. So thank you for sharing all of that. And I'm glad that I can share this with everyone else now too. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Thank you for listening to Learning with Lerner and hearing the wisdom, stories, and ideas that will have you feeling inspired and ready to take on the world. If you've enjoyed this, please remember to share, rate, and review. It means the world to me and the team putting it all together. If you're looking for more information, you can find me at lindsaylerner.com. That's LindseyLerner.com. Or if you've got any questions or curiosity about me, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Lindsay Lerner. Thanks again for listening and have an awesome day.